I'm quite boring, really. Just a person sitting in a chair with some opinions and a cat. But I think it's nice to sort of perform and do stuff because it's fun to do so. I've kind of escaped having as we all have, I think, escaped having a job by just doing weird things. It's fun.
We were all just talking earlier, and we all just realized that none of us has a real job. So
what's real, man?
Don't rub it in. People are going to be watching this on their way to work, being like, "Fuckers, I hate them." Yeah.
What's real, man?
Yeah.
Yeah. But you were saying that we provide value by doing these things somehow.
Well, yeah, we were talking about whether or not Russell Brand is out of his depth or whether he's doing. I think he's performing a useful function, regardless of whether he's. Because this is the thing. This whole thing out of Jeremy Paxman the other day. Jeremy Paxman was like, "Well, what's your alternative to the present scenario?" And he's like, "Well, I don't have one, but that doesn't matter." And I think he's got a point. Like, at least he's. Drawing attention to the fact that this system isn't working. So hopefully when someone comes along who does have some alternatives, I mean, the thing is, someone coming along with some alternatives isn't going to be the solution. It's going to be, there needs to be a thoroughgoing public discourse about the nature of a government. And if Russell Brand is going to draw attention to the fact that that discourse needs to happen, then hopefully something will come out of it. I mean, like, there's this sort of ridiculous piecemeal offering that Cameron gave to Clegg, which, for anyone who's watching outside the UK, this is this sort of coalition that somehow allowed just evil to be perpetuated for the last few years, where, the Liberal Democrats have always kind of, what's been said about Liberal Democrats has been that they're fence sitters and that they just go with whatever sort of popular or seems easiest at the time. And I've never really bought that, but evidently that is true, or at least it's happened just because they needed to get into government, so they formed a coalition. And the piecemeal offering that Cameron made was like, well, okay, we'll make a concession towards your sort of policy direction by saying that you can have you can ask the public what they think about voting. And, they had this sort of nationwide smear campaign that followed, that the Tories put out, about the fact that, any alternative sort of voting system would ruin the country. And
this was like the non-majority vote. They were going to say you could it's in Italy, like it takes a certain percentage of the vote and it awards those to the different people as opposed to the majority wins thing. And then it got shut down, and that whole idea.
Yeah, I mean, there was a referendum which was, shall we scrap the current voting system? But the Tories made there be fear amongst the whole country about we don't want to try anything new. I mean, that might damage things. But I mean, the party system is the problem. There's the fact that democracy, so-called, all across the world, has this kind of gang mentality within a parliament. Like, you don't need side-taking and group mentality and sort of gangland warfare going on conceptually with it. It's so childish, beyond childish. It's the opposite of what democracy should be, because you have a whip in each party that makes sure that people don't vote with their conscience. They vote with whatever the party line is. So it's tyranny of a different form. What Russell Brand was doing was simply pointing out that there's people like Noam Chomsky out there who point out the problems. So for a comedian to be saying, look, he's doing the same thing that George Carlin has done, or that Bill Hicks has done, and been a sort of vocal proponent of the fact that, call it enlightenment if you want, but just call it just learning stuff, being aware of
caring about
educating yourself.
People,
But he's not an activist, and that's the only thing. I mean, I know Tim, you're a big fan, and I know you were saying, and I know he puts a lot of exposure to it. And Russell's known around the world. He's got almost 8 million Twitter followers. That's a good metric. And but even you were saying a little earlier that he can't always back that up with argument and evidence.
No,
of
I
what
think
he's
he can.
doing.
I think he can, but he didn't have. It was a 4-minute interview or something.
It's 11 minutes, but I've watched it a lot of times. But what he's saying is that whichever you vote for, there's barely any actual change goes on. Politicians these days are only good at being politicians. Like back in Winston Churchill days, a good politician would be someone that really cared and wanted to make a difference and help the people. Now it's got to a stage where politicians are just good at playing the game of being a politician and getting into power. And it's the same with lawyers. To begin with, they used to care about getting the right person, what should happen to the right person, the right thing happens. Now lawyers are just good at helping their one person and not for the justice of the greater good at all. And he's pointing out the fact that you can vote for whoever you want and not much really changes. It's a very small parameter change. And we need a big change, and he's saying he's not the one that has the answer to it. He's trying to draw attention to it, and that he knows people, and he meets everyone. He's talked with a lot of people who will have the answer. People like Jack Fresco, who you've had on this show. If anyone like Russell or was in power, political power, you want Jack Fresco helping you with environment or with something like that. You get those people underlying you, and you draw people that actually know about these issues like environment or school system, education system, or the health service. Whereas politicians, they don't know shit about any of that.